Turn the cell phones on, huh? Oops. Okay.
Welcome to Lansing Online News Radio. This is WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. This is Vonnie Buckaroo, soon to be joined by my co-host Bill Castanier. And for those of you who want to see what we look like, you can also go to our website at www.lansingonlinenews.com, and we have our embedded webcast machine in there using our little Ustream again.
Our drone.
Our drone. Oh, did you hear that two planes called in today? Apparently, somebody tweeted that they hit a drone at 1,500 feet, or didn't hit it directly. They saw one in New York when they were going to land. That would make life a little bit exciting.
Bad as ducks.
I know. I mean, they're talking about launching as many as 30,000 drones over the next decade that will be in domestic use. How are they going to keep them out of the airwaves?
When we're not supposed to know they're there, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Can I have my own drone?
You can. U of M is doing some smaller robot drones that can be bought by anyone.
It's sort of like a radio-controlled helicopter or car, right?
Which are fun.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's to prevent me from sending one up there and causing real damage?
I used to have my own blimp.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
One of those little guys that float from room to room?
Yep, it was about 3.5 foot long.
Was it which kind you have?
I don't remember. I had to get it out of Canada. It was the only place that had it.
Oh, because they've got them now.
And it had a video cam on it.
Oh.
It was pretty interesting.
How cool.
You had to tether it. If you had it outdoors, it had to be tethered.
I see.
Because it would just blow away.
But
it was quite interesting.
Hey.
We live kind of near the airport, so it wasn't really appropriate.
I guess not.
But it was.
Put a big sign that says hi.
And you met. Well, of course, you remember Tom Youth. He showed me how to broadcast on cable with it.
Oh God, he would too, wouldn't he?
Yeah, we were doing some pretty interesting things with that.
Well, you were a rocket man, weren't you? Or a rocket boy in your youth?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to do that near the airport either because they were going 2 miles.
You know you'd be doing time now as a
We'd been in prison.
terrorist. Yeah.
We'd have been in prison for what we did.
Yeah. I think many of us look back at our own youth and look at this year and think,
well, making napalm.
We'd be getting out about now.
Making napalm as an accelerator was not a good idea.
Oh, that's not a good idea. Although, you know what? Just by zip strip, I found out that they're
Well, that's basically what we were making.
Yeah, it's exactly right. You could have stripped a piano or made a bomb, one or the other.
But it burns.
Oh, it does. My whole house. I keep telling people, pay the extra $2 for the non-flammable. I used steel wool to remove it from a metal strip and sparked it, and that's how my whole house torched. I had polyurethane the floors the night before. Geez. I have no sense of smell. It went, you wouldn't believe it. Fireballs were zinging across the ceiling within 60 seconds. I turned around, walked to the wall, grabbed my fire extinguisher, turned around, and my blender was melting into the counter. So I said, I think this is beyond what I can do with my fire extinguisher. I grabbed my pets and I took off for the yard.
They don't mention that on any of the beware instructions.
No, they did not.
Not at all.
No, they don't tell you not to use steel wool. I actually was furious about that. I wrote to the company, never got a response. I think they were figuring there'd be a lawsuit after that, but I didn't have a taste for that.
It's a great way to have an arson happen.
I guess. I wasn't trying to arson. I was just trying to get my pets out. That was the exciting part, trying to shoo as much of a menagerie as I usually have, trying to shoo all the animals out. That was exciting. Thank God they all made it out.
Is that the house you live in now?
Yes, the whole interior went through the
So that's why it's new. Okay.
Yeah, the whole interior is since '85. And it was funny because it was Halloween night, and I live at the end of a very long driveway.
Yeah, like about a half mile.
And the fire trucks took the wrong fork in the road and went down the wrong drive, so they all had to back up. You can imagine how long that took. So they get down to the base of the drive, and the neighbor kid appears in the woods in his skeleton outfit. And the fire chief had forgotten, as I did, that it was Halloween, and all of a sudden the skeleton appears out of the woods, and it's like, we've headed into the Twilight Zone here. I mean, I don't have much of a sense of humor when my house is burning down, but that was funny.
But they must have been able to contain it then pretty well.
It blew itself out because of the fumes.
Once they're gone?
Yeah, it went out like a bomb. It literally it exploded, literally, in the inside of the house. Charred the entire interior. Everything was black. You walked in, it was like, the next day it was like a cave. Fairly impressive. I mean, geez, I didn't know you could do that. $2 a gallon more, that's all it would have cost.
and not have polyurethane to floor that
None,
before.
yeah, that was not smart. Well, I was a friend was going to hold their wedding reception there on a Saturday night, so you can imagine how happy he was. That was a Wednesday. Had to call him and tell him about that wedding reception at my place on Saturday. Find another spot.
Or
That's
wear an asbestos suit.
or oh God, oh jeez. But on a happier note, we have a few announcements. But I want to say how much fun I have. I go out to the MSU Pavilion periodically, as they have various animals out there. The dog show was one of the last that I went to. I keep wanting to go to the ones that have horses, but I'm violently allergic to horses. I've done a couple of videos on draft horses that are very popular, and those horses are gorgeous, but I get very ill when I go out there. But this time it was bunnies. Oh God, it was wall-to-wall bunnies out at the MSU Pavilion over the weekend. A student of mine joined me, and we went out there and shot pictures. That is one of the better the bunny show was free. I mean, you could go out there and shoot bunnies all day long. Well, not shoot bunnies, not quite like that. Have to stop the Easter bunny jokes, but it was really, that's a cool thing.
It's on Lansing Online News.
A little
A little
slideshow.
slideshow. It's really cute. And I
Yeah.
didn't know bunnies could look that cute.
It's an amazing number of different varieties,
The long
long
hair, the
hairs.
really long hair.
Yes, yes. Little guinea pigs were out there too. I guess they just sort of lump guinea pigs in with
They're
bunnies.
they're aren't- are they related to a bunny? No, they're related to a pig, aren't they?
I don't know.
Maybe not.
I didn't check
I'm
there.
not going to look it up.
I didn't look
They
up.
eat those in South America.
Ooh. Well, I know they eat rabbit here too, but I
I do.
do you?
Yeah,
Really?
if I could get it. Yeah. I mean, it's expensive.
Is it?
Yeah. I used to run with a person that used to shoot them, and he'd give them to me.
I
It's
went to the
very
Lane.
lean meat.
I went to the Langshaw farm and did a story on their bunnies years ago, and I thought their bunnies were for meat, and then I realized later that probably the bulk of them were for animal research, which always made me unhappy. Yes, not good. So I'm always happy to see the bunnies being
You'll
well
have to
taken
do
care of.
like a llama show out there.
I did one of the llama shows. God, I love the llamas. They had them at the fair too. Fairs are fun. Now, coming up, we've got some good events, though. I don't think the bunny crowd's going to be quite as excited on Thursday night, however, to meet Charlie the Duff.
LaDuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Charlie LaDuff is a journalist from Detroit, and he works for TV2 News, but he's had
That's the
three
Fox outlet?
Fox outlet, which seems to be a little bit why Charlie, but they allow him to do what he does best, which is a new style kind of journalism, which is performance journalism. Um, one of the things he's noted for is having done a newscast in his underwear to
Yes.
prove a point.
What was the point he
The
was
point
proving?
was the city services were so slow. He went into a Detroit city building to get some services in his underwear, and no one even paid any attention to him.
Didn't make a difference.
So that was his point. He wanted to prove you could do almost anything, and they aren't going to help you. He golfed 18 miles in the city of Detroit on all the vacant land,
Oh,
which is very clever. And along the way, he ran into some amazing news stories.
I'll bet he
He
did.
just because they're there.
Yeah.
So, but he has written a book called Detroit: An American Autopsy, and it's a pretty grim look at the city of Detroit, which involves him, frankly, his
Yeah.
family. Very intimate look at his own family growing up, and somewhat their dysfunctions. Um, but he's also been a very traditional journalist. He won a Pulitzer Prize at the New York Times. He came back to Detroit to work at the Detroit News for several years.
He
And
still writes for the Times periodically.
yes, he
right?
does. Yep, yep. He writes for a variety of publications because they like his style.
Yeah.
His style is readable. It's entertaining, not always fun.
Mm-hmm.
When I interviewed him,
Compelling.
it's very compelling. When I interviewed him, I asked him, "What was the most absurd thing you think is in your book?" Because there's a lot of absurdities. And he says, "Well, you would think it would be Monica Conyers fondling me in a bar," but he said that wasn't it. I went, "Oh," he said, "No, it was that."
We'll pass over that.
Yeah, that's just normal, I guess.
That's-
What it was to him was somebody asked a person who was obviously a hitman to hit someone. He said he had to work, couldn't do it. Well, what he does, though, the hitman, he decides he's going to get his friends and go to the hit. He forgets that the person they're supposed to hit, the intended hit, is going to drive a black Cherokee. He has a black Cherokee.
Oh no.
His car gets riddled and somebody in his car gets killed.
Oh my God.
He
See,
says
now
that's the most absurd thing he said he's heard.
That's a Detroit story.
Oh, it's pure. And there's several of them like that because he says they do these things because it's cheaper than going to the movies.
Well, true.
They burn houses down because it's cheap. to watch.
My husband flew in on Devil's Night one time into the city of Detroit many years
Wow.
ago, and he said it was the strangest, most surreal scene he had ever seen because it looked like the entire city was ablaze. They've succeeded in reducing the numbers over the
Yep.
years, but I think that's just because there aren't as many left to burn, although I guess they still have quite a stock left.
Well, there's quite a bit to burn,
Yeah,
yeah.
what, some 25, 30,000 homes
Right,
yet to go?
right. And one of the things that he did that's real journalism in this is he embedded himself with a fire unit.
No.
And while he was doing that, one of the firefighters got killed
Oh, God.
from an arson. And he
Hmm.
helped solve that case. So, I mean, he does legitimate news stories. I mean, he's
I
a
can't
good.
wait to see him on Thursday. He's going to be at Schuler's.
Schuler's at 7 p.m. Thursday, and that's Eastwood Schuler's. Um,
I want to find out from him what he thinks about the emergency manager coming in.
I know what he thinks. I won't tell you.
You won't?
Oh, I will, but he thinks it's a good idea.
He does.
And the reason he thinks it's a good idea, he says it's not about the city, it's about the people.
Yeah,
See, he thinks that everything from the people that he sees every day, they need help desperately.
they do need help.
That's he said normally I'd say no, but he said they're so desperate for just basic services, lights in their neighborhood, firefighters coming within an hour, those kinds of things. He said they need that desperately down there. So
I think he may be optimistic that the emergency manager will be focused on those things.
they really haven't changed much in the cities they've been in.
No.
And they haven't got them out of debt either.
And now that that's happening, it will mean that the majority of voters, African American voters in the state of Michigan now, will be completely disenfranchised at the local level, which is really kind of staggering. It's just, I think it is a statement about the times and a statement about the direction we're headed that isn't very positive.
When I worked for state government, I had a good friend who was a researcher, and he did research on exactly what happened, and he called it economic apartheid.
Yes.
The study never was published.
I'll bet it wasn't. Yes.
Never.
Yeah.
Never saw the light of day. It was just too explosive.
Yeah. It's very sad. But now we see our Supreme Court may well soon be deciding that there is no more racial animus left in the culture, no more racial issues, and so we're going to be able to get rid of the Voting Rights Act right at the time where we're seeing the anniversary of the march to Selma over Edmund Pettus Bridge over the weekend. It was really a strange week, wasn't it? I mean, to watch those two events juxtaposed, where Justice Antonin Scalia decided all of a sudden that the Voting Rights Act is about racial entitlement, as if somehow being a person of color has been this huge advantage all these years.
Right. I didn't get that logic, but
Oh, God.
it was an interesting juxtaposition.
It was. I found it very jarring to see both of those things on the news at the same time. It seemed to me a stunning realization that there's a group of people who do live in the bubble who simply really don't understand what's really happening. Someone like LaDuff lives close enough to the bone even yet, even though he has a good middle class job, you know that he's not divorced from his compassion is for the
Well,
people in that city.
one of the things, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but not terrible because it's nonfiction. He, during the writing this book, he discovered that he was descendant of a slave.
Yeah.
And what he told me, he says, "Boy, I'm glad I didn't hate myself."
Oh,
So that was a great line. He's also
oh,
an
that's
American
good.
Indian.
Oh.
But when he said that, he said, "I am really glad I didn't hate myself. It would have been hard."
Ah.
He goes to a funeral. An aunt he didn't know he had shows up and tells the whole story.
Wow. So he was an adult when he learned, so
Yeah.
that saved him in a sense, didn't it? And
I,
having to grow up with that complicated burden.
Pretty interesting.
Wow.
That's why this book is so compelling. I think it's the kind of book that could, if if there isn't a bias against him because of where he works, he could win some kind of national award.
Oh, I hope to see that. I hope he does well in
He's
the
on New
Michigan
York
Notable
Times
books.
bestseller list right now.
Speaking of that, and speaking of the
Yeah.
dark side, we can now transition into our guest this evening, Rick Mercer. Rick Mercer is a New York Times best-selling author, and he has broken into a field that is sort of near and dear to my heart. I come out of having put on conferences on serial killers in the past and done a lot of work in that area, trying to look at the root causes of violence, and you use that and translate that into your fiction.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about your books and what you focus on. You have a detective.
I do have a detective. Manny Williams, he's not a typical detective based on a fictional Lansing character, of course. don't want to get into the real names because that would be. We'll deal with that later, I guess. At
All
some
right.
point.
In court?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. But I wanted a different um, protagonist. I wanted someone that was not a typical detective or an FBI agent or a private detective. I wanted someone who loved their wife. I wanted someone that was had some moral fiber. Wasn't sleeping with a different woman every 4 or 5 nights, or whatever term of taking money under the table. I mean,
A straight arrow.
Straight arrow, and lots of times he's
What
referred
Elliot Ness was supposed to be.
supposed to be.
Until we
Yeah.
found out later.
Until we
Right.
found out later, right? And that succeeded. I think I have thousands of emails liking the character
Oh.
of Manny Williams, and mostly ladies, but oddly enough, when I broke it down, it was about 33% male that enjoyed the character a great deal.
Well, one of the things, Rick, though, it's just, the character Manny may be a straight arrow, but the people around him aren't necessarily straight arrows.
Mhm.
That I want to make pretty clear because I read your book this weekend and I thought Manny may be the standout person from that group.
Well, that's true, and his partner Sophie Lee is anything but that.
Mhm.
She's not politically correct. She says what's on her mind. She was she's a American, Chinese American, born and raised in San Francisco and then transferred out into the Midwest, and she doesn't care what comes out of her mouth.
Ah.
And she's quite entertaining. Yet she's quite bright. She's done a lot of help with the investigations, and somewhere in Manny's psyche, I think his need to be the guardian of the universe entails straightening out Sophie on some level. Although he realizes that at some point in their partnership that's impossible. So
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. We're talking with Rick Mercer. Now, I gather that serial killing features prominently in some of your books.
it does. I'm fascinated with that the persona and the variation of persona that serial killers seem to exhibit. The fascination has to do with the lack of remorse, the lack of emotion when it comes to dealing with their victims. Uh, it's not, and it varies. Sociopaths, psychopaths, uh, it seems to be, you can define those a thousand different ways, and they don't have to be a killer per se to be a sociopath or psychopath. That's not a prerequisite.
The Cleckley checklist that Robert Hare out of British Columbia uses, he said you find as many CEOs on that list far more than you do serial killers because they're perfectly willing to assassinate the people below them. The only thing is those people still get to live and breathe.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And you can identify with that personality. I think we've all met folks that have a drive to succeed and really don't care who they step on the way. And I'm being
Just think
general.
Donald Trump.
Don't.
You know, if you have any doubts, I mean, if you're looking, you know.
Well, and that certainly Donald has some of those traits, and so. But this was more. I believe this was more to do with the criminal aspect and the fascination that.
Well, there's a portion where there's an overlap between sociopathy and sexual sadism. And I think that's the group of serial killers that have attracted so much attention. My husband said that there was always this section of our library that had red and black covers on the books. You know, those are all the ones about the serial killers, where I spent some time trying to sort of delve into the psychology of it. Bob Ressler, who was one of the people with John Douglas that started the FBI Behavioral Sciences Unit, was a friend. He spent a year out here as a visiting professor in the School of Criminal Justice when I was there. And Bob and I worked significantly on trying to figure out, we have our own little homegrown serial killer, Donald Gene Miller, and Bob Ressler and I talked about how, this was at the time where we have a problem with Miller because he was due to be released in a few years. He wasn't going to be out on probation or parole. He would have served all of his sentence. He was given a plea bargain in exchange for telling people where the bodies were. And that resulted in him being given a sentence that unfortunately was going to run out. So it was a huge problem for the community. And we ultimately ended up starting a group that met monthly out at Meridian Township Police called the Committee on Community Awareness and Protection. Because if nothing else, we figured we had to warn the community if he was coming back. And ideally find some other crime he had committed. And sure enough, he had. He had a strangling device in prison. And fortunately for us, the same prosecutor who put him away for the sexual assault in Grand Ledge, he actually served the longest time for a sexual assault, not for the murders. He was found to have had a strangling device, and they succeeded in bringing him up to in trial in Charleroi and putting him away for longer. But he'll be getting out in a few years
A few
again.
years, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, what's one of the things that we haven't mentioned about Rick's books is he took a different path to publication
Yes,
than
he
most
did.
people, and that to me, this is the fascinating story. Other than your books are fascinating, and
Thank you.
you decided by studying this very carefully that you wanted to self-publish, and you wanted to self-publish mostly as an ebook. Isn't that right?
That's exactly right. The market's changed. You know,
Has it ever?
it has. The gatekeepers are no longer secluded to New York City.
Yes.
If I might be so honest, I guess I had opportunities and talked to Simon Schuster about several things, and I had dealt with an agent, and we talked about a lot of things. But the more research I did, the more I have a strong business background, and the best thing for us was to be an independent,
Yes.
make sure we had a good product, make sure we did a good job editing, and so we dove into that head first, and it worked for us. Um, we've sold almost 575,000 ebooks in less
Isn't
than
that
2 years.
amazing?
It is to us. We're absolutely blessed beyond all we could ever imagine. But
So you're still working with an agent?
I'm not.
Oh,
We're not. We did for a while, and we parted company. It
Ah.
wasn't. Um, I don't think it's a bad idea to have your feet in both worlds. I really don't think that's a bad thing. And I think the traditional publishing has helped a lot of authors immensely. But my goal had a whole lot more to do with a business model. I got to combine my love for writing, which I greatly love that. There's no question about that. That's a great job, to
It
quote
is,
unquote,
isn't
to
it?
quote
Yeah,
unquote.
yeah.
You know, but I also wanted to make sure that I targeted an audience. These
The tag is obvious, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, when you're talking about Google,
Yeah.
people who are fascinated by serial killers, for example, I'm assuming if you put in serial killer, well, how, you come up in the top 10?
That's a good question. That's a really good question.
Ah.
We're there though.
You have to be.
We're there.
Yeah.
And how Amazon ranks them, and
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and we're always in the top 4 or 5 in Amazon's police procedural, which always has to do with serial killers
Yeah.
at that point. But uh, we decided that that would work best for us based on targeting that audience, based on my first love is as I related to Bill is actually horror.
Oh, really?
I grew up with the fantasy, the horror, the science fiction, all those things. I love the old black and white Dracula movies as much as anything, or the Mummy, or the Werewolf. I mean those
Can we
things.
see a parallel zombie track coming
Oh,
up here?
no, I think we're about zombie now right now.
Are we? Oh, I thought I
Well,
thought
maybe
we
not.
pretty much. I think we're werewolfed out, aren't we?
or we're werewolves.
Vampired
Zombies
out.
are on TV now, big time. Walking
Oh,
Dead.
I absolutely love Walking Dead, so
Oh, okay.
I'm one.
I've never seen Walking Dead. I'm going to tune in one of these days.
It's compelling with the characters as well. I mean, which I greatly enjoy. So we wanted to combine that kind of thing. You know, a good character-driven book with the market that people want to read, and I think we made it.
Are these books set in Lansing so I'd recognize street names, or did you invent a?
You would recognize some street names. They spent a lot of time in cruise ships and in the Caribbean,
Oh,
and Manny evolves eventually into to migrating to the FBI, and at least as a profiler and assisting them. So that's Manny's big gift. He's an intuitive profiler as well as a pretty good guy for the most part. But yeah, and they have to evolve. I mean, that's how your characters do. They evolve, and
are you going to strand him on that ship that?
you
Give
know.
him a nice case of norovirus.
Oh no. He's got his own issues. When you get through all of them, you'll have a few of those. But oddly enough, we got back from our cruise with Carnival the same day that the Triumph had their problems.
Ooh.
So we were pretty.
You would have had some great background material, wouldn't you,
Oh.
for a week on a Carnival cruise?
Wow.
In fact, my wife Carrie, who has, by the way, been very instrumental in this process as well. She's just retired from the state. She was a proofreader editor, so she assisted me a great deal in that process. But I told her, I said, I'm glad that we went on the one we did instead of Triumph. Although, if I could have been on that alone, I probably would have said yes.
Right, right.
I probably
Yeah,
would
that
have.
would have been great material,
Yeah, it
Ken,
would have
wouldn't
been.
it?
Not to drag her
Can you
into, but
And
put
you
a
could have
serial
written it,
killer in that? Whoa.
and you could have written it off. Your
I actually
taxes.
think there might have been somewhere around 1,500 serial killer potentials on that ship at that point. There seemed to be
Yeah.
some serious frustration.
The
But
captain, I think, should have locked himself in his cabin by
Gone
that time.
overboard.
he did, and but we've had wonderful experiences with Carnival, and you know what? You get something that large, that mechanical. Once in a while, something's going to happen. There's not much you can do about that, but nevertheless, my heart went out to the folks on that thing.
When you do police procedurals and you've not yourself been a police officer, how do you do that research?
Uh, uh, there's lots of things. First and foremost, thank God for the internet. That's a great thing. But I have a lot of police friends. I have retired Ingham County detectives and a couple active police uh, buddies that I bounce things off them regularly, and they've been a great deal of help. But more than that, when you write it, you have a sense for what you're trying to write with that scene, and then I bounce it on Mark particularly, and he he's been very encouraging. He said you're right on with the meetings. That was one thing I was concerned about. I know from my, been a VP of a couple companies, and I know from that you got to spend time sharing information, and how much more important is that when you're dealing with criminal aspects of our society, and so that was something I was concerned with. But he told me we were right on, and then as I think I mentioned to Bill when we were talking last week, he said some of the things that you write about, Rick, are certainly um, gory, I guess is a good term, or explicit. He said, but certainly not to the level of real life. He said, what you write about and what we see, you can't make this stuff up.
Right.
And he talked to me about a couple of cases, and I walked out shaking my head.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
One of the things you did too, and I think you were frustrated about when you looked at traditional publishing, is how long it takes to get it in print.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
I think it's ridiculous.
Well, and
The
I understand.
turnaround time is just horrific.
I agree, and I understand if you have hundreds of authors and you have a times, a schedule or that type of thing, but as an independent, Caribbean Moon came out March 31st, and Deceitful Moon, the second book, came out May 31st, same year. By September, Emerald Moon had come out, and I was deep into Caribbean Rain. That came out in 4 months, well, four books in 1 year to the day. I was able to release that many.
Now, writing your first book, were you able to unplug from a full-time career and just devote yourself to writing, or did that book allow you to then do that?
Ah, wow, here we go. Actually, it's a two-stage process. I wrote Caribbean Moon, laid off from the first job, and um, had to do something. I went back to work, and I ended up quitting a job that I had as a VP of a mortgage lending service company. It was my dad had just died. It was kind of emotion packed, and frankly, Scarlett, I had about enough of that life.
Yeah.
It was demanding, and I was beyond it. And so I quit. Thought I'd take a few months off. We had some money put away. We expected that. Almost 2 years later, and 600 resumes later, no one was hiring a 55-year-old ex-executive. It didn't happen.
It is a rough time out there.
It was, and still not good for folks
No.
that are looking for things that they really want to do. And so I pulled out Caribbean Moon, edited about 8 or 9 times. I remember 6, 7 o'clock at night after starting at 8 in the morning, going, my gosh, what am I doing? I don't
Yeah.
know what I'm doing. But I've always been a voracious reader, and so you could kind of parallel what we were doing, and we put it out on March 31st, and by the time my third grandchild was born, July 8th of that same year, we hit Amazon's top 100, and then it exploded the next 2 months. It just exploded.
How helpful was Amazon? Do they interact with you at all when you start getting at that level?
They did. Amazon, uh, everybody wants to ask, and Bill was no exception. What single event exploded their sales?
Yeah.
And I had the same answer. I said, God bless us beyond all we could imagine. That's the only logical explanation I can give you. And some people may not say that's logical, but we we also targeted the right audience. We went out to Caribbean sites. We went out to cruise sites and pushed the book.
So the cruising audience is your audience as
That
well.
was our target.
I see.
75 million people over the next 5 years will cruise, and almost every one of those are readers. So we want to kind of to dig into that a little bit. But
75 million people will cruise?
over the next 5 years. Yeah.
Good Lord.
That's a lot of readers too.
That's a
That
lot
was a
of
very
readers.
smart move. Don't
Wow,
tell,
yeah,
shouldn't
yeah.
be telling people
No,
this.
Well, you know, and we've seen a lot of Caribbean books come out since then. But Amazon was constantly contacting us, particularly after we started making some sales. They got us on some lists, you know, some hot new releases,
Yeah.
you know, some of those kind of things, and
Started fetching you up to the right people when they logged in.
they did. You know, we had uh, just an incredible group of folks that would support all the questions that I had. They would support, you know, how we get a new version out, you know, and we did our own research. I mean, we can go through the process quite quickly on our own right now, but
They make it very easy.
they do.
You know, I think a lot of people don't know that. They're scared of Amazon,
Right.
and they're good.
They're excellent, and
They are.
Amazon's not alone. I mean, Barnes and Noble is a distant second, but Barnes and Noble does a great job with their ebooks. Smashwords is a vehicle into several, the Kobo to Sony, some of those iTunes,
Hmm.
and Smashwords is a direct vein into those folks. So we were able to kind of group that all together, and it came out the way that it did. But I think Amazon has the potential, and I don't believe I'm exaggerating, to be the most dominating advertising entity on the planet.
Yeah.
You know, they have. I've watched them since we first published. I've watched them go to Japan, Brazil, Canada, uh, uh, Italy, France, and a couple more countries I can't remember right now that have their own setup. Germany is another one, and when they went from just a couple places that your book would show up, you know, the U.S. and now India as well, and watch them expand their horizon in terms of exposure to the world. Um, I don't know. I would love to know exactly how many emails they have, email addresses. My best guess is somewhere around 50 million. You know, and can you imagine shooting? Uh, I'll use Caribbean Moon as an example. Shooting that book to 50 million people,
Right.
or 30 million people that read police procedurals or detective books, and shooting that to them and say, "We recommend this book."
Yeah.
My gosh,
And they're very good at recommending books.
they're
Yes, they
very good
are.
at
And
that.
I get scared when they send me their recommendations, and I've read them all, and thinking, how do they know?
This is
What
LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. And you know, the only thing I will tell you though, Bill, is that I did waste about 20 minutes one day because I only buy certain kinds of books on Amazon, other books at bookstores. And they said you could educate the database so that it would more clearly, because I felt, I wanted those other books prompted to me. Well, I wasted 20 minutes putting all the books in and still got the same old recommendations. It didn't change at all. So they're not quite as good yet. They can get a little better. Tell Jeff Bezos next time you're talking to him that there's one more wrinkle that he needs to master.
Are your books translated?
No, not yet. I've had
I just thought of that when you're talking
Yeah.
about all the, because I didn't think they were. And
no. We have a lot of offers to do that, and well, success breeds a lot of those things. And we've got a lot of contacts, I've had several Hollywood opportunities or inquiries at the minimum.
Interesting.
And you know, you weigh them all.
Yeah.
You know, you weigh them all. We're in no hurry on any of those at this point. And you know, we've only been doing this for a couple of years.
Right.
You know, so we've got a horizon that we'll take our time.
Now you're also doing print on demand through Amazon CreateSpace,
We are. We are.
and so you then, for people who don't know, in addition to the ebook, which fits the Kindle, they use Kindle Direct to send it up to Kindle Direct, and they've got their own program. Then you go through Amazon CreateSpace, and then you can, and you're ordering them up a few copies at a time if that's all you want. I mean, the price is more than affordable.
That's exactly right. And when we do that, we can offer them on our website for sale a little cheaper than they could perhaps buy them on Amazon. Our shipping is about the same, or that kind of thing. We're exploring that more and more, but I really believe that's a serious propensity for the future, or a serious condition of the future for books. Uh, when you get into the traditional world, they sometimes have to do a print run of 50,000 books or
Right.
40,000 books.
Right.
And if it doesn't sell, you're sitting with 25,000 books in a warehouse somewhere. That's not economical for anyone. You know,
Even 5 or 10,000 you don't want to be sitting on.
I wouldn't want to sit on 500.
Right.
You know, so why not?
And you're not going to get your second book
Correct.
that way.
Correct.
No.
Either.
No.
Correct. And so why not? find a way to do that.
Now, you seem to be this unique combination of sort of hard-headed business person. You come from that. At the same time, you've got this author's drive. So you combine both the creative and the pragmatic. That's a nice combination because I think that's where a lot of other budding authors go astray. They may not quite have that business drive to understand it's a market. I have to find a genre. I need to tailor what I'm doing to the audience.
I think that's absolutely true. We were very intentional with a commercial fiction versus somebody writing from the heart, and I don't know why you can't combine the two. We kind of did.
Sure.
You know, again, there's nothing.
You're not insincere. It's authentic writing.
Correct. You know, and there's nothing I enjoy more than sitting down with the old Max. I have a blind black lab who sits, kind of boosts me up to the writing room every morning. He's a trip. But
well, at one time you were second behind Stockett's The Help, weren't you?
we were for about 4 weeks.
Wow.
4.5 weeks last August and
So
July.
this is the kind of things you read about. They don't happen in your backyard.
And here's the difference between that and The Help. Once you invent a character in a continuing series of books, you have people who will always read that character. You have new people that constantly come along and just discover it, want to read all the back ones. I mean, that's the beauty of the police procedural when you have a character that's compelling.
It is, you know, and again,
don't kill him off.
Well, people have some concerns about that. I mean, that's certainly true, and we, you know, well, first and foremost, you don't kill the goose that lays the golden egg. I think, and Manny has quite a following. Just, when people email me, they don't say when is your next thriller out, Rick. They say when's the next Manny book coming out. You know,
that's the perfect thing.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like Lee Child.
Yeah, and I love that to death. I love that we created a character that people can identify with. I've worked with so many different faces, so many different personalities. I've managed so many different people, and I think that comes out in the books. I mean, they're real. There's a persona that you know that the politically correct folks, all of us have to pay attention to. Then there's the other folks that you know, the blue collar that don't really care about those things, the joking and those kind of things that I think Sophie Lee sums up. And then you have the science folks, and you have the emotional folks, and you have all those things, and we put those all in together because I think, yeah, it's some kind of distillation of mankind. I mean, that's
There's
what we
a
are.
pretty Midwestern,
There is.
you know, ethos.
Oh, there is in these books.
Yeah,
There definitely is.
There is.
You know, one thing we probably should explain that you're going to be at Schuler's Okemos Saturday, right?
Correct.
What time?
We'll be there at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. And you're going to be doing sort of a FAW debate with somebody you met online, another author, and it's Jenny Milchman, who took the traditional path to publishing.
Oh, interesting. So
like
they're gonna
13 years.
compare
And
stories on.
Yes. And
Interesting.
she is as committed to her path as you're committed to.
It worked for her.
It worked for her.
Yeah.
And she's in her third printing of her book, her new book, so it should be pretty interesting. Now she's doing a 45 state, 18,000 mile or something tour. I mean, it's just amazing. Now you won't have to do that.
No, no.
Did we check her sales?
No, I haven't seen them anywhere.
Oh, we're going to have to find out.
Yeah.
How far has your tour taken you? A few cruises, right?
Oh yeah, my tour is not very far.
Holt to Lansing.
I love the ebook world for 1,000 reasons, and
Yes.
and that's one of them. Having said that, I love Jenny Milchman. Jenny and I met a couple
Well, it's
years
going to be
ago.
interesting. Yeah, it's going to be interesting too.
And it's really not a debate because, I mean, different people take different paths. And,
Absolutely. And
I think what the ebook explosion has done is opened this world up. I mean, in the old days, one of my favorite stories, and it's not apocryphal, it's true, Jerzy Kosinski won the National Book Award for Steps. And a crabby little graduate student somewhere retyped the manuscript and submitted it to all the major New York publishers and then published their rejection letters. None of them accepted the book. All of them wrote scathing things saying, find another career, you should never be a writer. And this was a National Book Award winner. So, I mean, you never know. You land on the desk of the wrong editor for your kind of book. And you're just simply out of luck. And you can't do over the transom stuff anymore. I mean, you have to go through an agent. And just finding an agent, as Bill said, is harder.
The agent is probably the most important person in the book publishing industry right now.
You know it is, but that evolution is an interesting one over the last 2 or 3 years. They're trying to comply or trying to mold themselves into a dual.
Right, an entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
help
How do I deal with the ebook explosion from all these independents, and how do I get books in front of New York editors
Yeah.
that that they fall in love with and that they want to publish. And the agent that I had, and Noah he was a great guy and a lot of help. But he told me he had as many as 1,000 to 1,500 submissions in a month or 2 month period, and 1 year he only sold 2 books to an editor. And let me back up just a little bit. I'll say something about I just want to address that whole thing about the gatekeepers. I want the public to be able to decide what they can read, not 6 or 7 different companies. And that's kind of the opinion I took. Kind of the road, the the I don't know, whatever term you want. That's the kind of the theme I wanted to take. I wanted to show that you don't have to go that way to have a successful author or writing career.
Well, I will tell you,
I
Rick,
think-
I want people to show up on Saturday night and hear you defend that position as we
Sure.
hear from the other side as well.
Sure.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you so
and we'll
much
see
for
you Saturday,
coming.
and I think we'll have you back again because I want to
I'd
follow.
love to.
I want
I
to
wanna
follow
follow.
this because it's in motion. It's happening as we
Well,
speak.
thank
It
you so much
is.
for having me
Thank
again.
you, Rick.
I appreciate it.
Okay,
We're
take care.
also going to shift gears to another sort of dark topic, unfortunately, and that is there's some current talk about passing new legislation, new ordinances for the city of Lansing, and it relates to animals and to dogs. And I'm going to introduce Melissa Day Hasbrook as I adjust the camera, and I'm going to so that we can get them both in on the webcast. And you will introduce your guest as well, and tell us.
Thanks, Bill and Bonnie, for having us come tonight. This is Dr. Jennifer Stuhler. Nice to meet both of
Good to
you.
meet you. And
She's
you
a vet.
are
I'm a
veterinarian.
veterinarian, yes. I've been a veterinarian for 13 years in Lansing. So
What clinic?
Waverly Animal
Waverly.
Hospital on the west side of Lansing.
I wondered.
Yeah.
I have had so many pets. I've been to them all, but I don't get that far west.
Okay.
So there is this pending discussion about what to do about pit bulls in the city of Lansing. That seems to be what the focus is right now. And what do we know about what's happening with that?
Well, what
Melissa?
I have connected with Council President Carol Wood and also people from Voiceless Michigan, which is a statewide rescue group. And so I understand actually where most of council stands right now is very positive about a vicious dog ordinance that would not be breed specific, but that there is some part of the council membership who is for that, and that the mayor has been speaking along those lines, also with attention to pit bull owners, specifically to pit bulls and that. So that's where that angle is coming up from, is more at the mayor's end and a smaller portion from council.
The part that confuses me is that when we're talking about pit bulls, I think the thing that springs to mind is the idea of dogfighting. And we already have significant ordinances against dogfighting. So what is the reason for singling out pit bulls outside of dogfighting? I mean, I've heard that raised as an issue. Jennifer, maybe you could tell us, how does that?
I think in my experience, I think it comes from a lack of education of the public, and it comes from a lot of fear that I think the media has just sort of provoked in people. These sensationalist stories, we're all riveted when we hear someone that's been a child that's been, killed by a pit bull, but we focus on the fact that it's a pit bull, and we forget that these are animals, and any animal is potential for harming, someone, and not just pit bull terriers. There's a lot of factors that go into that, how they're raised, how they interact with family, the education, the training, which you can attest to because, she has two pit bulls that I have had the pleasure of dealing with, and, her own personal experiences. But if we could, I think, educate people and not make them fearful, that would be my big wish.
Melissa, what is the need for a then vicious dog ordinance? I mean, don't we have laws on the books? I mean, what is a vicious dog, and how? I don't understand how an ordinance like that
Right.
works, because so often what we see is, and I've known it from my own experience. I had a Doberman, and they will always say that you always have to be careful that that dog might turn on you once, and mine did, and it was a shock to me. And he was the sweetest little guy, and all of a sudden one day he was not the sweetest little guy, and he didn't do it again. But it was an absolute mystery to me. Latched onto my arm and did not want to let go. So I don't know what we mean by a vicious dog.
Well, I had to take a look myself because I don't know what is on the books. And from what I understand, tomorrow there is a public safety committee meeting, and there is discussion on this topic. So they're looking over what is on the books at the moment. It's at noon at City hall on the 10th floor. So people are encouraged to come and speak on the topic to show public support. But what I have found personally is that in the city there is an ordinance about leashes.
Okay.
And at the state level, there is language around a dangerous animal. So
Yeah.
the word vicious is not used.
Okay.
And there are consequences listed in the state law. And on the county level, there is some language, but not a specific section, dealing with dangerous or vicious dogs. There's language about attacks, bites, vicious habits, and so on. So there isn't a whole section focused to that. From what I have read through the media, I understand that there had been some recent incidents with utility workers that caught the attention of local government, and some complaints that the mayor has referenced specific to pit bulls. But I don't know what the specific evidence is on that. Actually, my research that I've been doing through Voiceless Michigan, the statewide group, providing, you know, well-evidenced stuff about breed-specific legislation and other national groups. The research shows that breed-specific legislation doesn't actually make communities safer, that it doesn't reduce the numbers of incidents with dog bites or injuries.
I can understand wanting to target people that are training dogs to be attack dogs, but the idea is, there is a whole security business built around having dogs that guard the perimeter of your property and so forth, and people make a career and a living doing that. Is it aimed at saying you can't do that anymore, that you cannot train a dog to be a guard dog?
I think you can train a dog to be a guard dog. We have police dogs that
Right.
are trained to be vicious under certain
Yes.
circumstances. But again, those are trained professionals and they're responsible owners. And I think that's where the really, it's not the dogs.
No.
It's the owners. It's the people who are raising these dogs, the people who are training these dogs. You have a responsibility to raise and train your children, yet you can let your dog, if you're not training it properly and it bites someone, that's not the dog's fault. That's
Right.
that's your fault. And I think that we need to hold owners more responsible.
And you can't really hold them responsible until after the bite, because you don't know beforehand.
Correct.
So, we already have laws on the books and civil actions on the books that if one of your animals harms somebody, you're certainly in peril.
On a positive note, I'm glad the conversation's happening in the community, that it could become a constructive dialogue rather than a divisive one. My concern about the whole language around vicious dog,
Yeah.
aka pit bulls, for example, is that it seems to be more divisive in nature than anything. And the approach that I would prefer is a community approach, that education being key. We do have some things on the books already. My major concern when I'm out walking my dogs, because one of them is dog aggressive, is enforcement of leash.
Oh, absolutely.
I constantly run into people who have their dogs off leash in the city. Walking Mount Hope Cemetery the other week, someone had their dog running alongside their car. They weren't even outside with the dog. And I've had to learn with my dogs, which are pit bulls I rescued from the street, and I've had to learn 3 different approaches to work with my dogs, the oldest one, before I found the one that actually helped keep us the safest out walking and taught me the best as an owner. But it took a lot of time and a lot of luck to reach that point. But so when I run into people who have their dogs off leash, or people who say, oh, but my dog's friendly or obedient.
Right.
That's a high sign to get on.
That's the common sense aspect that I had to do a lot of learning on. You don't approach dogs you don't know, because you don't know their history. They have personality just like people do. So you don't know what they're bringing to a situation. And these are just common sense factors.
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan.
Now, is the city of Lansing applying a standard that's been used somewhere else in the state?
What I heard from Council President Carol Wood is that they're looking at what's on the books right now. So they don't have a specific provision at the moment that they are dealing with. They're looking at what's already there. They've been having conversations, from what I know, with folks from Voiceless Michigan, as well as the Director of Animal Control. And I have been made real clear that, Voiceless Michigan and the Director of Animal Control are also not for breed-specific legislation. So people who are doing advocacy work and work for the county are very clear that that is not the approach that they want to take at all.
Have you seen communities that do a good job of this kind of ordinance, and what would the ordinance be designed to accomplish?
You mean as far as banning
I mean, what are they trying to accomplish here, and how would an ordinance help? I'm not clear yet as to what problem they think they're solving.
Well, I don't think they're solving. I think they're creating more problems. I mean, we look at like there's other areas in the state that have tried to ban pit bulls and Rottweilers and what they consider quote unquote vicious breeds. What has happened is that people who are faced then with high fines or getting rid of those dogs or being forced to get rid of those dogs, they end up in shelters, they end up loose on the street. We end up with more problems, I think, than we're solving, with that. So again, it's about educating people that it's not a pit bull problem. Like Melissa said, it's about being a responsible pet owner, keeping your pet on a leash, training them, and there's so many pit bulls that we see on a daily basis. I may see 9 or 10 pit bulls out of the 30 dogs I see. They're very, very popular breed, and I think that's why they're in the news more. They're probably as popular, if not more, than Labradors at this point in time, and so we do have a lot of them around. In 13 years, I've never been bitten by a pit bull. I've never been attacked by a pit bull.
They're gorgeous little guys.
They're gorgeous dogs. They really are. They're terriers, so they're a little tenacious. I mean, they do have a high prey drive. They're very energetic. They also have incredible jaw strength, and I think you have to respect that. I mean, this is a dog that when it does bite somebody is gonna do damage, So I think people who get these dogs need to be aware of what they're getting into.
Admittedly, the nastiest dog I ever had was my little Cavalier King Charles mix. God, that dog, she was just awful. And little small dogs, they get real territorial. She buffaloed every other dog in the household. She bit them all the time. I mean, she was just a little terror.
Yeah.
I mean, thank God she wasn't a pit bull, because with that jaw strength, she could have done real damage.
Right, yeah.
Well, I think that point of popularity, I had a conversation this morning with the trainer we last worked with in our family, Hector Hernandez from First Class Dog Training, about this topic, that I might reference his experience. He has had a long experience training with dogs. I was referred to him by Dr. Stuhler, that pit bulls are many times victim of popularity, that they've been popular for about 20 years now. And then they also can become a victim of, individuals who are irresponsible. Because the fact is, for all dogs, that if we don't train the dog will train us. The dog will rely on its instinct. As Dr. Stuhler said, dogs are dogs. This is why you don't leave any child alone with a dog, because a dog is a dog regardless of its breeding. So this comes back again to how we could, as a community, become better educated and responsible to each other, talk as neighbors. I've talked many times with neighbors about, please don't walk your dog off leash, including in front of my house. This is my story with my dogs. They've been rescued from the street. My oldest one is dog aggressive. We work with her. She's so much better than she used to be. But frankly, if we're out walking and someone jumps us, it's my job to keep control of her. But that is just increased risk. If I don't know what happened specifically with the utility workers here in the area that helped
They should be trained
make
to deal
issue.
with that.
Well, if the dogs were on leash, that wouldn't
That
have
would eliminate the
happened.
problem.
So the city has a leash ordinance. So I don't know how many of these incidents that are being referred to involved animals that aren't on leash, for example. That seems
Well, so we had another law that's unenforced.
right. So this is
Snow on sidewalks.
Well, and we've got people who have been trained by the media to think a pit bull's running toward me. It could be the friendliest dog in the world, but you see that huge head running towards you. It's a large dog, and you think, oh my gosh, this thing's going to bite me. I mean, I wouldn't blame a utility worker for thinking that, and that would, but I think that, again, that's someone's irresponsibility.
I was talking about this issue with my husband earlier, and he said, He said, the only problem you're going to run into, Bucky, with your logic here is, isn't that the same thing they say about guns? You want guns banned. Now they want dogs banned, and it's all about the owner. Does that mean you now want to say any gun is okay? And I said, well, the last I looked, though, they really hadn't built a militaristic 10-foot tall dog. Because if they do, that's the one I would ban. If dogs get to be 10 foot tall, then I think maybe we have to rethink this.
Where does the Humane Society stand in this? Because I remember reading that 80% of the dogs that they deal with
are pit
Pit
bulls.
bulls.
Although they
In
put them,
Ingham County, anyway.
and I think it's if you ever look at the Sunday paper, they're all put down
I
as lab
know.
mixes and all this because there is a
Staffordshire
stigma.
Terriers.
There's a stigma with pit bulls, but
Yeah.
the Humane Society, from what I can tell, loves the bully breeds and does they work just as hard to get them adopted as any other breed, and there's been a lot of
I
nice
tried
dogs that have come out of
connecting
there.
with the Humane Society before the show, but I wasn't, able to reach anyone.
Yeah, I was
But
just curious where they're standing, because I know they do a lot with those dogs.
Yeah.
Well, if we're talking about solving a real problem, we have to euthanize 3 to 4 million dogs in this society. And when you add in cats, you're getting up to 7 to 9 million pets a year. I mean, this is just extraordinary, the carnage and the trauma, actually, that it inflicts on people who work at the shelters. I know some. I mean, the thought of having to spend your days just euthanizing animals is not a pleasant way to do business. The no-kill shelter simply can't handle that volume of pets. We have to get smarter about reducing the number of animals born that are unwanted. And especially in tough times, I think that's a real challenge. What strategies do we have for dealing with that, Jennifer? I mean, to me, that's the real challenge.
Yeah, and I think that right now we're doing the best we can, especially like with the dogs, the Humane Society offering, low cost spay and neuter.
That's wonderful.
Voiceless offers bully breed, the pit bull spays at, low or no cost. And, so that we're doing the best we can, but it's the tip of the iceberg.
It is.
It really is, and it's disheartening sometimes. I don't know how they do it. But just again, letting people know when I see a pit bull come in as a puppy, and someone says to me, I don't want to spay or neuter it. I want to breed it. And I'm very frank with people. I say, go look at the shelter. No, nobody, your dog is beautiful, but nobody wants your puppies. They're all end up in the shelters, or the people get them and then they don't follow through. The commitment's not there. And I say, do this dog a favor and spay and neuter it if you can. But that's one person I'm getting through to, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a connection to our youngest dog, Kyron, who was found in my neighborhood while I was walking my older dog.
Mm-hmm.
I had been warned, there's a loose pit bull in the neighborhood as I'm walking a pit bull who I had found loose. Visiting my sister
Deja
in
vu.
California, who's her kids had been feeding Mama, my oldest dog. But I went back out to look for him later and fed him and brought him home. We ended up fostering him. Voiceless made a profile, but we ended up keeping him and having a challenge to integrate him into the home since our oldest dog was dog aggressive. And we've had a miracle, and in part that was through the training we had with Hector Hernandez. And I feel like the support of our general vet, who kept things very realistic about the animals being animals.
They love each other.
Oh,
They love each other now.
But
It
he
is
was
fascinating to watch animal friendships.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely amazed and cat friendships too. I mean,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Kyron had been spayed. He had a number which showed he had come from Ingham County.
Oh,
So someone had him.
tattooed.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
And it was clear he had known about being indoors.
Huh.
He knew how to sit and shake. He seemed like a big, energetic puppy that someone didn't want to deal with anymore.
I think that's what happens too, is that they are so cute as puppies, and then they become these big gangly dogs that require a lot of attention and so
Really
forth.
strong.
And they're really strong, and if you
There's
don't
a
know
lot
how
of
to-
slight
And
people
they're
can't walk them.
Yeah.
And I would also urge people to get a breed that suits them. I am
Yes.
not good. I shouldn't have. I mean, that's why I did. I rescued a pit bull and gave it to my brother-in-law, and he took wonderful care of the dog. He was perfect for it because he was willing to be master of that dog. I'm just a big friendly person. I let the dogs be dogs.
You need a Labrador.
I just,
But-
they're on the couch, I'm on the floor. It's that kind of thing. I should not have one of these dogs.
Too many Labradors in the world.
And this was an important point from the National Canine Research Council, was that a lot of the animals in the shelters, this problem we find with people wanting to have new puppies, yet there being so many animals needing homes, is often these problemed human and the people problem.
Yes.
That there is an incident that might happen, and that happens because the people aren't necessarily handling the relationship right. So it is, of course, not the fault of the passerby in the street who this loose dog might come up to and hurt. It is, of course, not that passersby fault. I am not saying that at
Yeah.
all. I'm saying there is someone who is attached to that dog,
Yeah.
or how our community approaches those dogs, not as the problem, but the humans as the problem that need the solution.
We need to give more support for people. I see some communities now that are doing things like having, in essence, food banks for dogs. You know, because I watched a Frontline special, and probably the saddest part of the show was when the little girl, they had to take the dog to the shelter because the family, it was a choice of do they feed the daughter or do they feed the dog? I mean, that's how tight things were for them. And that's a sad reality in our society after the recession. We need to be able to keep these dogs in homes. And if that means, I think the efforts to do that, to spay the pets, to give people the support, because it can get expensive to have an animal.
It can, yeah. And people don't realize that it is quite expensive. And you had a good point about, if the city, instead of doing a ban on vicious breeds or what they call vicious breeds, maybe they should put more effort toward education of people and offering someone like Hector Hernandez, if he would be willing, or people he knows would be willing to offer programs through the city.
Meridian Township actually offers regular classes with Hector, and so Lansing would benefit from something like
I hope that we can have
that.
you come back and give us an update on what happens at these sessions. I'm hoping that we can find some positive solutions to making sure all the pets in England County are taken care of. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
See you next Monday night. This is Lansing Online News Radio, LCC Radio, WLNZ, 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. And I have to click. That was wonderful.